Well, Joe Biden has to make it until August 8th. That's when the Democrats plan to conclude this virtual roll call process, which would formally nominate Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever it might be about 2 weeks before the convention in Chicago. That being said, I think Van Jones said it best on CNN the other night. Former President Trump took a bullet, shook it off like nobody's business, and showed up at the RNC a few days later. Joe Biden might get pushed out of this race by COVID-19.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top reporters about the headlines they're covering this week. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with White House reporter Christian Datoc. Christian, as we're speaking right now, at the time of this filming at least, President Joe Biden, still the Democratic nominee. His future is hanging in the balance. All that being said, the spotlight is now kind of turning to Vice President Kamala Harris and whether she has some viability in the race against Donald Trump. What are you hearing from Democrats?
Well, what I'm hearing from Democrats, Sarah, is that everyone is unsure of how this is going to play out. There are some polls that showed Kamala Harris performing better against Donald Trump than Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom or any of these other potential successors, but she's still down in those polls to Trump. The other thing you have to think about if you're a Democratic strategist or a campaign operative or anything like that is, how is this campaign going to be funded? Of course, if it's Vice President Harris, she has the DNC and Biden-Harris campaign war chest. That's worth roughly $250 million right now. But if they wanted to go a different route, they would have to start over. And we've heard from bundlers, donors themselves, even campaign officials that the money has unsurreptitiously been turned off since the president's debate with Donald Trump back in June.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to need to start flowing again if anyone other than Kamala Harris is going to succeed President Biden. But again, there's just so much we don't know right now. I mean, it's 3 weeks after the debate. We thought the president had sort of abated these calls for him to exit the race. And then former President Trump has that assassination attempt. They pick up again this week. So it's really a day-to-day news cycle right now. And by the time you guys are watching this, it might be a moot point. Yeah.
All that being said, there's been shockingly little discussion of what comes next if Joe Biden does step aside, right? It's not clear if that's, like you said, rallying behind Kamala Harris, another Democratic candidate. Do you think that Democrats are taking seriously enough how much chaos, that kind of uncertainty, this unprecedented historical situation could cause? Or do you think that there's just tunnel vision on Joe Biden getting out of the race at this point?
I think some people are taking that into account. I've spoken to some DNC officials who are actually saying in battleground states specifically, the people who voted for Joe Biden, they are hearing that this effort to push the president out is frustrating them. And the last thing Democrats need right now, given how Trump is up in virtually every single poll, is a mutiny in those critical battleground states. Of course, we're talking about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio. We'll even throw in Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. The board could become very red if Democrats do something to anger their base beyond the fact that they're dealing with an 81-year-old presumptive nominee right now.
Joe Biden was also diagnosed with COVID this week. And, on the one hand, you could say really unfortunate timing. It's hard to stop a coup against your nomination if you're at home in bed. But also, could this be really fortunate timing? Because it still continues to delay the conversation, keeps him from making any big gaffes. And, his biggest ally right now is time.
Well, Joe Biden has to make it until August 8th. That's when the Democrats plan to conclude this virtual roll call process, which would formally nominate Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever it might be about 2 weeks before the convention in Chicago. That being said, I think Van Jones said it best on CNN the other night. Former President Trump took a bullet, shook it off like nobody's business, and showed up at the RNC a few days later. Joe Biden might get pushed out of this race by COVID-19. I don't think that is a comforting feeling for Democratic voters. And again, it just sort of exacerbates this sense of anxiety that everyone in the party is feeling right now.
Well, Christian, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more reporting from Christian and the rest of the political team at washingtonexaminer.com.